Howdy folks, welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty jingles. The theme of today's video is epic wins. So yeah, he's going to win this game. It's a bit of a spoiler, but it's difficult to hide the result when the video is called Epic Wins. This is Lukop. He is driving the British Tier 9 tank destroyer, the Tortoise. Very powerful machine. 120mm gun, strong frontal armour, but with weak spots, and of course it's very, very slow. The 120mm gun that it has in World of Tanks as the top gun on the machine is unhistorical. That's actually the gun that was used on the Conqueror, and the Conqueror was designed to kill IS-3s from the front from over a kilometre away. It's a very, very powerful gun. I've actually seen the real thing at the Bovington Tank Museum a couple of times, and it is absolutely magnificent. It is a monster of a tank destroyer. You really don't get a sense for how big this thing is by watching it in World of Tanks. It is absolutely huge. Anyway, back to the game. XVM has rated Lukop's team's chances of winning this match at 58%, which is nothing special, but it does mean that as long as nobody screws up and plays at more or less their usual standard, then the team have a good chance of winning. You know that's not going to happen. This video wouldn't be called Epic Win if it did. Statistically, there are a lot more pretty bad players on the enemy team than there are on Lukop's team. Lukop's team, on the other hand, doesn't have anybody who's particularly good, according to their statistics. The enemy team, on the other hand, do have two pretty good players in the shape of the Type 61, Tier 9 medium, and that Type 59 that Lukop just took a shot at. Type 59, getting the hell out of there. Recognised that he was about to get overrun, pulled back. T-34-2 up here, in serious trouble. So, why would you want to get a Tortoise? What is good about it? Well, it's got a great gun. It's pretty much all about the gun on this machine. That 120mm gun, I think it has the highest damage per minute in the game. If you fit this tank with a gun rammer, ventilation, you have Brothers in Arms as a crew skill on all of the crew, and you use premium consumables, this thing pushes out over 4,000 damage per minute. It also has a fantastic firing arc. Look at that. Look at how far he's able to traverse the gun to the left and right. That means he's able to angle the frontal armour, which is very unusual for a non-turreted tank destroyer, but he's actually able to angle his armour while firing at a target. The combined armour thickness of the gun mantlet and the frontal armour comes to over 500mm. It also has fantastic gun elevation. Now, that might not seem like a big deal, but if you've ever been driving a tank destroyer down one side of the hill on El Haluf, for example, into the valley in the middle, and then you suddenly spot a target at the top of the hill on the other side, there are not many tank destroyers that are able to point the gun up high enough to be able to take shots. What are the downsides? Well, it's very, very slow, it's a huge target, it's very vulnerable to being flanked by light tanks and medium tanks. There is a huge armour weak spot on the right side of the front, and that little machine gun turret on top is where the loader actually sits. And it's one of the weak spots, so you're constantly getting your loader killed when you're driving this machine, which is a bit of a problem when your damage per minute output is what makes this thing special. Okay, now we've just reached the important part of the battle. You see that lone IS Tier 7 heavy tank who's just been surrounded by a whole bunch of enemies and is the last thing stopping them making a run for the cap. Lukop spotted that and he's heading back to defend. The rest of his team, however, have spotted an opportunity to try to win by capping themselves. They've got an IS-3 on the corner up there who's holding off any enemy tanks, for the moment, who are coming back to defend their own cap, but look at the map. The IS-3 is in severe danger of being overwhelmed. The rest of Lukop's team are heading to back up the IS-3, or they're trying to cap. You almost never win a game of World of Tanks by capping in this kind of position. What you're actually looking at there is a 2 versus 5 fight. The two tank destroyers aren't fighting, they're hiding in the cap circle. The T-29 is coming back to try to assist Lukop with defending their own flag. The T-44 and the Super Pershing are the only ones actually fighting all of those defenders. From this point on, it's a hopeless situation. They're just going to get overwhelmed and taken down one by one. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. Meanwhile, Lukop, he's found the Type 59. But there's also a Super Pershing out there somewhere who was last seen attacking the IS and has not yet been spotted back at his own flag. And that's a useful kill for Lukop because that Type 59 was one of the better players on the enemy team. And there's the Super Pershing. Look at how quickly this gun aims and how accurate it is. 1.7 second aiming time and 0.31 accuracy. It makes it actually pretty good at firing on the move too, largely because of the aiming time and accuracy, but also because, well, this thing's top speed isn't that much different from its not moving at all speed. It is a very slow machine. And it fires so quickly that you don't really lose anything by taking a speculative shot on the move and missing, because the next shot is in the breach ready to go so quickly. Not something you can really do in a Jagdpanzer E100, for example. Lukop needs to kill this Super Pershing, and he needs to kill him fast, because the enemy team have already finished off everybody else on his team who was trying to cap, and there is nothing left for them to do, and he's just taken a hit there from an invisible Tiger II who hasn't been spotted, has already managed to make it back to within firing range. There's nothing left for the enemy team to do but head down in this direction and kill off Lukop's Tortoise and that very unfortunate T-29. It doesn't matter whether the enemy team are going to try to cap or kill everybody. It's all here. This is where the tanks are, and this is where the flag is. Now, unfortunately, the Tiger II is already here, and that's the slowest machine left on the enemy team. The rest of them are probably all going to arrive at the same time. On the bright side, however, there's the 3002D. On the bright side, he's pretty much got his back up against a wall here. He's right in the corner of the map. And this is exactly the kind of range at which the Tortoise's armour is actually pretty good, because he's able to keep the front of the tank pointed towards all of these enemies, and nobody's in a real position to get around and outflank him. Or at least, nobody's in a real position to get around and outflank him, as long as that T-29 stays alive. And that T-29 isn't staying alive. He's got to help the T-29, or he's going to have 3 tanks swarming over his... Oh no, this is not good. Now, he is able to use that cover in the cap circle to keep his flank safe from the T-44, if not the Tiger II, while he attempts to save the T-29. The Type 61 driver just gives him a kill there. He completely underestimated the rate of fire of this 120mm gun, and that was the best player on the enemy team in one of the most dangerous tanks on the enemy team. I mean, you know, if we're going to be completely honest here, the Type 61 just threw his tank away. There was absolutely no reason to drive in front of the firing arc of a Tortoise when he could do what these guys are doing and drive around the rear. And losing that Type 61 is going to seriously hurt the enemy team here. He's now killed the T-44 and the Type 61 and the IS-8. Now, this is the point where things start to get a bit slapstick, and I don't want to sound too judgmental and critical here, because it's very easy to be critical when you're sitting watching a replay comfortably without actually being one of the guys in the battle at the time and panicking and sweating, knowing that the game hinges on what happens in the next few seconds. Lukop is tracked, but he's tracked at an almost perfect angle. Angled at 45 degrees with 228mm of frontal armour, his right side weak spot hidden around the corner of the building. All that Tiger II can do is blow his tracks off. The VK3002 is in the Tiger II's line of fire. The 3002 should be backing up, getting around that building and coming around behind him. Instead, he's panicking. He's loading high explosive, and he's managed to do some damage with one of the shots that he's fired, and then somebody misses a tracking shot. Lukop manages to get his tracks back up. The 3002 is now doomed, but they can still win as long as the 3002 doesn't block the Tiger II's line of fire. And of course he panics, and that is exactly what he does. And the wreck of the VK is now covering up Lukop's right side frontal hull weak spot. Of course, that only works if the Tiger II hasn't shifted positions, and since Lukop wasn't getting shot at, he correctly guessed that the Tiger II had shifted positions. It's all down to who gets the first penetrating shot off, and they both. I mean, they're panicking. They've got to be sweating, knowing what's on the line here. The Tiger II knows how quickly this tortoise reloads. He's not taking any chances. Once again, it's all down to who gets the first penetrating shot off. Lukop backing up, trying to break contact, and then the Tiger II makes a critical mistake, coming around a corner, side first, and just hands him the win. I think it's fairly safe to say that watching that replay, you definitely got a very good sense of just how much everybody was panicking in the last couple of minutes of that match. And I love watching replays like this. Lukop is not an especially good player. He's not an especially bad player. Like most of us, he's just a Joe Average World of Tanks player. And I love seeing Joe Average do good. And Lukop did good in that game. Oh, but Jingles, he just got lucky. Shut up and watch him play. Anyway, enough of the fun vampires. I hope you enjoyed the replay. I certainly did. And I think I might be thinking of making this a regular series. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you want to see more games like this? Anyway, time to go. As always, folks, take care, and I'll catch you next time.